What's up? This is Rebel Radio.
What up? What up? This is DJ Newmark.
This is Peanut Butter Wolf.
It's your boy. It's okay.
Keep checking out Rebel Radio.
Rebel Radio.
This is Rebel Radio.
We're in the place right here. Rebel Radio is going down.
Would you say Rebel Radio?
Oh, wait. Let's do it again.
Rebel Radio.
What's up, Rebels? Welcome back to Rebel Radio, the weekly show where I bring you the rebels who are shaping our culture. I'm your host, Josh Levine. This week, I bring you some great lessons from the founder, CEO of one of Fast Company's most innovative companies. Dave Macli is the founder of Audiomack streaming service and also of DJBooth.com, the hip hop blog. He's going to talk to us about innovation and how he's kind of ingrained that into the culture, the DNA, if you will, of the company. We also get some insight into how he's competing with the world's most powerful companies. He's got these giants that he's up against, and so he's learned how to find his niche. And what we talk about is playing a game you can win instead of the game that everybody else is playing. We also get some good insight into his approach for hiring and specifically why he looks for employees who have run their own businesses. It's a great interview. I hope you'll enjoy it. Let's go.
What do you want to get into today?
Yeah, so I want to talk, let's your history a little bit. And so, take me back to the beginning. Do you remember the first record you ever bought for yourself?
I think it was Tribe Called Quest, Beats, Rhymes, and Life. I think it was the first tape I bought. And I think I bought that in, maybe like 8th grade or something like that. That was the first time I could make it out to the store by myself and buy what I wanted,
I mean, that's a great record to start with.
Before that, I would hang out with older kids that had, CDs and CDs and tapes. I didn't have a CD player yet. That was kind of rare. But I started buying tapes, and it's true. Like if you buy a tape, after a little while, it starts to sound like crap. So it was nice to make the jump to CDs. But I started making little mixtapes because one of my buddies had a dual cassette tape recorder, right? So you could record off one cassette onto another one. So, if you kind of played around with it, you could almost make a transition between a song. And that was really fun. And that kind of got me into DJing later on.
Nice. So, and do you remember just like, where you were or the record or like, do you remember falling in love with hip hop? Was there a moment that you can point back to?
I mean, I think listening to Stretch and Bobbito on the radio really put me over the edge. I mean, I've been listening to music for a while, but those guys just every week just had you listening to things you've never heard before. And it wasn't like when you listened on the radio, you'd kind of hear the same stuff. It was a lot of repetition. There, it was just every week, just brand new sounds, just brand new styles that I had never heard before. And the kind of the mystery of who these artists were, and like, could I get this on tape so I could listen to it again? Like that was amazing to me, right? And that really kicked off my my desire to be in music and to be in hip hop specifically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I had them on the show, just talking about those times when hip hop wasn't accessible, right? And I mean, obviously music in general wasn't as accessible as it is today. Nothing was, but hip hop specifically wasn't really on the radio in a lot of markets, and or at least a lot of the stuff that we wanted to hear wasn't on the radio, right? And we really relied on those mix shows and those DJs to be the, they called it the hood internet, right?
Yep.
It's amazing to think, and I know we want to talk about your business, but like to think about how wide that reached even back then, the far corners of the world that were getting those tapes of all the radio shows, and people were discovering the shit like in places where you wouldn't think. I never thought hip hop would have reached back then.
It was like a present, like every week. It was you didn't know what it was. You'd put it on, and you didn't know what artist was going to be on the show. you had no idea. You had no idea what you were going to hear, and you didn't know who they're going to talk to, who they're going to talk about, but you knew you'd be entertained. And I had never encountered like a music medium where it was just so unexpected every week. Going from like Cool Keith to like Wu-Tang Clan, like you just can't get further. They're both dope, but they're dope in their own ways, right? So, and then going to Tribe Called Quest, like it could be anything, and I just love that feeling, of exploration. And when Napster came out, I was on that like real fast. It was like, okay, now I have access to anything, like anything I could search for, I could find. And then I started getting into blogs and like undergroundhiphop.com and these early pioneers in online music journalism and music stores. And part of it was like the thrill of the hunt, kind of like finding your next favorite artist, right? That was exciting. And I think that's something that still lives in my business today, is that feeling of the excitement you get when you find something brand new, that you didn't expect, and they become your favorite new artist, or your favorite new artist that week, or your favorite new album, or even in some cases like your favorite new genre, which I love all the sounds coming out of Africa, like Afro beats and Amapiano and all these great new sounds. I want to be introduced to new sounds as much as possible, because you get that goosebumps feeling that you can't get anywhere else.
Yeah, that's a great point, and I think those are harder and harder to come by. Maybe as we get older, or maybe just as there's more accessibility to everything. But I think that's I love that. Like you cherish those moments, right? And we can think back definitely to our childhood of discovering certain artists or sounds or whatever, and just those will stay with you for decades. So you started, if I understand, you started out in ad sales, right?
Yeah, when I was 19, I was DJing kind of like small bars and stuff in New York and Connecticut. This was when I was in college, and I started a site called the DJ Booth. It was an early streaming site. The labels were happy to give us music to stream. We were streaming it through Flash, so that kind of shows how old I am. And that was the technology I could use to stream on the internet. There was no HTML5, so it wasn't easy to stream. And so I built that because I was in computers, and I would review DJ equipment. I would just try to make money any way I could off the internet, because that was when Google AdSense had just come out. So you could actually put ads on your website and make money. And I found that to be pretty interesting. So, my initial goal was, okay, let's make like $3 a day, or let's make $1 a day. And then, let's make $10 a day. Sure. And, I had built things into DJ Booth around like favoriting and following and playlisting and following artists and things like that. And I just wasn't that great of a developer, so I could do HTML, but I couldn't really build like a platform, right? So, got a job after college. My partner, Brian Zizuk, took over kind of day-to-day operations of the site. But I always realized that I was on the right path in terms of making an online music player. So when I met the right people and I had the right time, we started Audiomack, and that's how I got into Audiomack. But you're right, I was in ad sales for a while, but particularly in digital ad sales. So anything related to digital advertising I was in, and that helped me launch Audiomack, because it was an ad-based platform that offered everything to artists for free, but we would make money on the other side. We'd make money on advertising.
So what are those skills? I mean, we both have a lot of friends who have started, hip hop businesses out of our love for the music and the culture, right? What are the skills that you learned doing ad sales that have helped you, that stay with you today and have helped you kind of get to where you are?
Yeah, I think I was in more tech sales, but I think any sales role is going to give you the skills to really think about what the other person's thinking and how to influence them. Like a lot of times people are just, they think of sales as talking about your product, but really it's the art of influence. And you know, my sales VP Lauren Brown at one of the companies I worked at, you know, I was asking him, why can't I get this woman to buy this? Like, it's going to make a ton of money for the company. It's exactly what she needs. And he said, you're not really thinking about what she personally wants. And I was like, what do you mean? She should want to do what the company is best for the company. And he's like, why would she want to do that? Like, she's a person, right? I was like, he's like, I know she wants to go home early to her kids. You need to talk about how she can get this software and she could actually get her job done faster. She doesn't care about the money. She's looking at this as a way, something that she has to worry about, you know. But if you position this as something that gets her home faster, then she's going to buy it, right? And that was like enlightening to me. And I try to think about that whenever I talk to anybody, you know, as a CEO of a company, I'm constantly speaking to people who I want to influence in a certain way. And I always remember that advice that you need to think about the personal and the professional, you know, in order to influence somebody. Like, what are their personal reasons for doing something versus the professional reasons? Not everyone thinks about things logically or thinks in the best interest of their company or their brand or whatever. And sometimes that's not the best way to influence people. Sometimes it's about fear, you know, avoidance of fear. Sometimes it's about personal benefit, and keeping that in mind has helped me.
I mean, I think that's huge. I had a moment. I can remember the first time I had that exact thought, right? When I had started my agency and we went from, you know, I went from managing rappers to trying to work with, you know, Fortune 500 brands, right? And, you know, that's such a shift in mentality, right? Because when you do what we do, when you're a rapper, you know, artist of any type, you're always on, right? You are never not working. Right. And our work is our lives, and that's the way we've chosen it. And, you know, corporate folks are not like that. And I literally remember the day when I was like, you know, our clients, and I said this to my staff at the time, I said, our clients' number one priority is to go home at 5 o'clock and not think about work. Right. And that's our job, no matter what, no matter how cool the program is that we're bringing them, nothing else is going to count if we can't help them do that. And so I love that insight. And I think it's hard for people on either side to understand that about the other side. Yeah, so I love that you said that. When did you know you had something? You know, you're plugging away with DJ Booth. Did it like start popping off right away?
Yeah, I mean, on DJ Booth, like what it made me realize is that you need good people around you. So, you know, I was fortunate that my partner, Brian Zizuk, DJ Z, reached out. He was doing local radio in Chicago, and, you know, he complemented a lot of my skill sets. I was a bit more technical, more business oriented, but, you know, he knows music, you know, he's very operationally minded, you know, so he was able to kind of provide like the missing piece. And, you know, we started hosting mixtapes. We hosted like Big Crit's mixtape. We had early freestyles from Mac Miller and Wiz Khalifa. Like he really was the one who found those artists that he thought were going to pop and got them to do interesting things with us. And that really helped DJ Booth grow, but also we always had great editorial as well. So great relationships with artists, great relationships with labels, and great editorial. So we started to grow, and then, you know, as the blog era kind of ended, I started to look towards like, what are some other ways that I can, you know, take what I've learned and what DJ Booth once was, which was more streaming, and rebuild it. So I got together with my co-founder, Dave Macli, who's also from the advertising world, and our CTO, Ty, and our chief design officer, Tom Klinger from Pure 9 Studios. We just decided to build it nights and weekends. And the concept was simple. Other services are charging artists for the right to upload music. You know, we don't think that's fair. And there's a lot of artists there that don't want to or don't have the money to pay for hosting. And we think it's kind of a commodity. So we'll give that away for free. You can upload as much music as you want. And then the second part of it was, we'll rank that music in real time on Audiomack So, as artists are incentivized to go and promote, their sounds to their audience because they want to get up that chart, which then it leads to them getting more fans, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think we quickly realized that was a pretty killer combo, and using DJ Booth to help us get young artists that we had relationships with was a great way to get a spark going for Audiomack. And then we got blogs to use it, like Two Dope Boys and Nah Right, to use the platform. And that was a big help as well. So we got a lot of things going at once, which is good because, there was a small window of opening for us to start a business like Audiomack. I think if you tried to start a business like that now, it'd be very difficult because, you basically have a platform with no artists on it and no fans. And how do you get one without the other? But we were able to do it by leveraging our relationships with blogs and also artists through DJ Booth.
Mm-hmm. I remember when I first learned about Audiomack, so I knew about DJ Booth. I met your guy Nathan at our kids were in preschool together, and he was the only other guy in the room with tattoos. So we just started talking, and then he was telling me about what you guys were doing, and I remember at the time going like, that's like a streaming service. That's crazy. Like,
yeah,
like in a good way, right? Like that, like who knew that you could just launch a streaming service? That seemed like such a, big company thing to do. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And so, talk about that, right? Talk about competing. Your competitors, whether, direct or not, are some of the biggest companies in the world that have endless resources. How do you, tell me about strategy. How do you go into that space and think about, what you're trying to build?
Yeah, if you came up with a list of companies you don't want to compete against, it would be like Apple, Google, Spotify, Amazon. And that's pretty much what we're going up against every day. The thing was we weren't going to launch with like every song in the world and $9.99. And like, I wish we had the money to do that. Like we knew that was where the industry was going. We knew streaming was the future. We wanted to put a bet down. But we had to choose our niche, right? We had to figure out, okay, without all this money, without all those resources and the marketing splash and, understanding that Spotify has already carved out a pretty large niche in Europe and in the United States, where do we go with this? We built a streaming platform that focused on independent artists, right? And, it allowed the artists to run their own book of business. And that was something that you couldn't really get from Spotify or any other service because, in order to be on those services, you had to be with a label, right? Or be with a distributor, and distribution wasn't as widespread as it is now. So, we said, stop sending out MP3s, stop using sharing sites. It all should go on Audiomack. And best of all, if you get some traction on Audiomack, you're going to rise up the ranks, meaning more people see you. So, we look towards some of the reasons why people use services like Hype Machine. So it was like a bit of a Hype Machine plus Spotify combination. And we went out there and we felt like that was a niche we could carve out. And we put a little money in, our own money, but we put a lot of sweat equity and a lot of nights and weekends. So, year one was building it. Year two was kind of getting everybody to quit their jobs because we saw that it was doing pretty well, which was not easy. A lot of people had really, really good jobs that they didn't want to give up. And they were taking a 90% pay cut, day one. So, but it ended up being the right call because, we ended up growing the business pretty quickly. Now I think we've carved out a nice little platform, not just in the United States, but also in Africa, where we're seeing pretty rapid growth.
Nice. Yeah, I want to talk about that, but I got to tell you, I love that story, right? And I know you and I have talked over the years, some of the trials and tribulations we both experienced in the media business. I'm attracted to the idea that you're like, we're not going to win playing their game, right? So we gotta play our own game, and we got to figure out, what is it that we can do that, and to, from a certain perspective, like, Apple, Amazon, Spotify, they have to compete head to head with each other. and they're playing a certain game where you kind of have to be the same as everybody else, pretend like you're not, throw huge amounts of money at it, right? And that's the way, United and American, that's the way, CBS and NBC, right? They're any giants, it's always the same game. And so for me, like, I love the opposite of that, right? That you're looking at it going that, we can't play that game because there's no way to win. So how do we restructure that for ourselves?
Yeah. But I mean, ultimately what we're doing is harder to replicate because, those companies are trying to create competitive advantages or differentiation between them, but they all have the same catalog. If you ask the user what different features do you get from one versus the other, I think they'd be hard pressed to figure it out. So I think this is like early on in the streaming wars. I think people jumped towards whatever brand they like better, or whatever brand was first to kind of entice them to subscribe. But ultimately, Audiomack is a unique value proposition in that it is a way to connect with creators directly. And, a lot of times when you're listening to a song on Audiomack and you're commenting on that song, the creator sees it. The creator is there. Like they're the ones that uploaded it. And I think that's a big, differentiator. One of the things I really like to see is when we launched comments, people were directing their comments as if they were talking to the artist, right? So they feel that connection. Whereas on other platforms, they know it's like a store, like they know it's you're not actually connecting with that artist. There's nothing you can do to stick your hand up and say, I'm here, I'm listening. And as we get into more of the patronage model, where creators are taking control of their own destinies and finding ways to get their audience to support them, I think that's an advantage for Audiomack because the creators have control on Audiomack. They're the ones managing their accounts, but more importantly, the fans feel like there's a connection to the artist there, which makes it more likely for them to, patronize that artist through Audiomack. And that's what we're all about. We're not about charging artists like other platforms. We're about making money with the artist.
So, given that, how do you filter? Like, I think, obviously I'm sure you watch what Apple and Spotify and those guys do. And, and I understand the temptation to be like, oh, they launched this, we got to launch that. Right. I'm sure those thoughts pop up in your head. Right. So what's the process for like metabolizing that and filtering, where to focus resources and energy and what things to like, okay, let them have that. We're going to stick to what we're doing.
Yeah, it's got to play into our strengths. It's got to be something that plays into the fact that we have that direct connection with the artist. They're on our platform uploading. They're looking at their stats, and that the fans feel that connection, that one-to-one connection between themselves and the artist, right? So there's a lot of features we could build. I think we've done a good job of building the things we have to build, the things that are kind of bare minimums for a streaming platform. But then, we looked into following, right? Like a lot of platforms don't have following artists, right? But we invested in that. Whereas, you can't really follow an artist in the same way you follow an artist on Audiomack on platforms like Apple Music and Spotify. Our following is a lot stronger because it's once again that connection. And then, we're also looking into the various different ways that a mid-tier artist who might not make as much via streaming can make money directly from their fan base. So like, what are the things that we can offer, an artist can offer their fan base that makes them feel even more connected in exchange for patronage? That's important as well. And then social, right? Social features are really important to Audiomack and a competitive advantage and fit into our wheelhouse because we are an open platform where anybody can listen, even if they're not a subscriber. So shareability, social, connection, patronage, these are all things that I think we can execute better just because of the foundation that we're built on, regardless of how much money or resources we have compared to bigger companies.
Sure. But you have had some big artists on the platform. I know there's I know there's Migos. I know there's Chief Keef. I know,
Yep.
our homies at Stone's Throw. You've done stuff with them. What is it? What does it mean? To me, that's interesting, right? Like you have some big artists. I think there's still a generally low awareness. Most people probably don't know about Audiomack. And so how much do you think or care about that? Like awareness versus everything else you just said.
Yeah, I mean, we have large artists as well on the platform. We've signed deals with major labels, so they've started putting their music on the platform. And what's important there is that if a young artist succeeds on Audiomack and then gets signed and they choose that signing to a major label is in their best interest, we want that music to stay on the platform. We want that artist to continue to participate on Audiomack. So that's why those deals were really important. And it was important from the major label side that when they sign a young artist, they can further get support and continue to get the benefits of being on Audiomack. But yeah, I mean, like not everyone in the United States knows about us. I think we have much better brand recognition across Africa. But everyone should know about us. Like it's a great way to discover new artists. And what we've done, I think, if you're only going to listen to the radio and you're more of a lean back type music listener, then we're probably not the right platform for you. And we're probably not going to compete at Pandora or, Top 40 radio. But if you're the type of person like everyone I hire and myself that loves the joy of discovery and wants to be on the cutting edge of music and wants to, open up your musical boundaries, then I think you do know about Audiomack and you probably think of it pretty highly.
Sure.
So our goal is to find ways to reach more of those types of people. And, a lot of times we use the artist as our marketing engine. So the artist can go out there, upload music to Audiomack. They want to put that music out and share it on social media. And then their fans see Audiomack, they can listen on it. Maybe they already have Spotify and they only open Audiomack a few times a month, but they're still a user and they still have, an affinity for Audiomack and what we do.
Yeah, that makes sense. So I know you talked about Africa and you have an office in Lagos, right?
That's right. Yeah. So we have a team down there, a great team. We're really excited about all the sounds coming down from Africa. We're excited about bringing those sounds to a wider audience across the world. We do musical charts by region and including states. And actually, our New York City chart is kind of dominated by a lot of African artists. So there's a number of expats in from Africa in New York City, and they listen to a lot of Afro beats. But also increasingly, I think people are opening their eyes to the wonderful music coming from there. And I think it's something that is going to influence music worldwide for a long time to come. I'm extremely excited about the artists that I discover, whether it's in Ghana or Nigeria or increasingly in Kenya, South Africa, even the Ivory Coast. Like there's some artists there that we're really excited about.
Nice. Yeah, I mean, I think it's a really interesting time, where the US and UK, have been taken for granted that they dominate, musical trends, right, for decades now. And I think, we're starting to see, it feels like we're at the very beginning of that, of seeing the impact, of Africa, of Latin America. Obviously, we're seeing what's happening out of Korea. I don't know what any of that means. I'm curious to see what our musical landscape looks like in 10 years when I think all that's really matured.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, what's amazing is on platforms like Audiomack, like we try not to put you in that echo chamber, like musical echo chamber, where the more you listen to something, the more it gets recommended. And
Sure.
Pretty soon you're just like my dad, and he just listens to, Chicago all day. So we don't want to create that. Like we don't need that. I've put many of my friends on to Audiomack that they got set in their ways, and they're just like, I listen to Wu-Tang from 1998, and I'm like, well, that's fine, but like, check out these artists, right? Like, or check out this playlist that you might be interested in, and pretty soon they're recommending me things that I didn't really listen to, right? And it's just, they just need that push to get out of their comfort zone. But too often many music services are just like, hey, what do you like? Oh, cool, you like Gangstar? Like, okay, great, we'll show you some Big L. And it's like,
Sure.
that's cool, those are great, amazing artists, but are you listening to YBN Cordae? Like, are you listening to any of these new guys that also have a great sound? Maybe were influenced by these rhyme sayers from the past, but have their own unique way of doing things.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, I think obviously those companies, their algorithms are tuned to keep you, listening as long as possible. And so, it's almost like things that spark too much attention or maybe not, or, maybe not productive for that, right? And yeah, so I think that's a really interesting point. I think it does appeal to a different type of listener, right? Who wants to have a different experience, different relationship to the music.
Yeah, one of the things that I'm proud we just launched is if you download the app, it just came out on Android. It's going to come out on iOS pretty soon, but if you go to the charts, it just came out on Android faster because we had to deal with iOS 14.5, which is like a major ad tracking change. But you can go to our music charts and you can actually change them by country, right? So like I've been looking at like what's hot in Barbados. Like they got a crazy vibe there, you can actually kind of tap into their vibe and it's fun. It's like a fun exploration situation. Like it's interesting to see not just country by country, but like what's the difference in musical taste in Florida versus New York, right? Like they have totally different sounds. You could see which artists are popular in one place versus another. But I really enjoyed like exploring Africa, exploring Latin America, seeing what is really popular in those regions, and also how different some of the sounds in Nigeria are different than from Ghana, and how they have completely different charts, even though they're like right next to each other, or not right next to each other, but very close in proximity.
Sure. So, when you think about different genres, 'cause I know you launched, EDM. I know you have Latin music. I know you have, Caribbean, African, as we're talking about. And those aren't all necessarily genres, but I wonder, like, hip hop culture and the hip hop community has this way of doing things that, the way we interact with each other, with artists, we were talking earlier about the competitive nature. That's definitely not true in other forms of music, or not nearly as much. And so I wonder, like, what's the learning curve to go from hip hop to EDM or to Caribbean music, and how do you and your team like kind of keep true to those cultures? Yeah, in the context of what you're building.
I mean, the first thing we do with any new genre that we're looking to launch is we find someone extremely passionate and extremely plugged in to the genre, and not just kind of like what's hot now, but what are the artists that are on the come up. A lot of times you'll see people hire like someone my age to do that. Like we'll try to hire somebody that's maybe like 20, 24, 25, someone on the younger side. Because typically we find that they are a bit more in the scene, but that doesn't mean that, someone older can't do it. But we want to find someone as close to kind of like that discovery age, because too often people start to fall into their habits as they get older. But, we find somebody who's really into the culture. And we give them, a lot of times it's finding artists that aren't that big now, but we are placing bets that they will be big in the future, and then doing content with those artists, getting them to evangelize the platform, helping our existing audience discover that new artist and start to play his or her music. And then we ask that artist in turn to like reciprocate, to evangelize Audiomack. And that's worked out well for us. Although I will say, when it comes to African music and hip hop, that's where we've had the most success with that strategy. we have a good rock section as well, and that's getting moving and certainly growing. Certainly electronics growing as well. But it seems like that strategy works best with certain genres. Although in other genres it might not be as effective. But hip hop is really interesting because a lot of artists are out there doing absolutely anything they can to get new fans. So if we give them a platform where they can make money, get new fans, they're going to go out and they're going to tell their fans about Audiomack, and that's how we grow.
I mean, it's an interesting insight. Like, I think we have, especially those of us involved in hip hop, but in general, right? We have a hip hop centric view of how music and community come together. And I think because it's so strong, so pronounced, right? But, I've spent a lot of my career working in dance music, electronic music, and it's very different. The artists, if we're stereotyping, the artists are very different. The relationship to fans is very different. It's a festival and a nightclub culture, not, there's so many more differences than similarities, right? Yep. And yet, if you're on the outside of that, if you're a brand trying to advertise or sponsor, or if you're, on the tech side trying to be in that, like, it's easy to miss those nuances. And so I think that's a great insight to say, well, okay, this model is going to work better sometimes than others, and maybe you're going to have to figure out other models for those different scenarios. Mm-hmm. You think about rock music, right? There is really no such thing anymore as rock music, right? It's such a mature genre that, punk and classic rock, like those don't have anything to do with each other.
Yeah,
right?
Absolutely.
Other than a guitar, right? And but they're not the same scenes, they're not the same audience, none of that. So talk about, you said something interesting, right? You're hiring, let's say, 24-year-olds, or maybe not, right? But and you're entrusting them with important decisions that you're entrusting them to bring, knowledge and perspective that you don't have. So tell me about that leadership style a little bit, that that allows you to trust people and yet not have the ship thrown off course.
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, we try to hire people that are a bit entrepreneurial in nature. They've run their own book of business. It could even be a small scale business. It could be DJing. It could be anything. But if you've run something yourself, then you've kind of learned on the job, and I think you've matured a bit greater than your age, because
Sure.
You've been the person that has had to make the decisions, and those decisions affect your life, right? So a lot of the people that we hire, they've done something on the side, whether it could be as simple as like running shows or managing an artist, right? But if that's the case, we feel better at entrusting them to kind of run shop on a certain genre. And they're not making like multi-million-dollar decisions.
Sure.
We give them a framework that they should work within. We're there to support them. I think that's really important. My co-founder, Dave Macli, he manages all the people on the curation side. So he's put together a framework of support, around the people that do curation and do artist relations. And they also just have various resources throughout the organization. So we have a content operations team that handles, making sure that music is put up right, shows up on the right profile, handles any issues that the artist might have. We have curation tools that help our curators find diamonds in the rough across the, tens of thousands of songs uploaded every day. So they have a combination of technology and people to help them. But I think what's most important is hiring somebody that's, it's not like they just went to school and, decide to get their first job. We would, school is important, but we would prefer to see somebody actually go out there and try to do something themselves. And I could say
love that.
Nearly every person we've hired is that type of person, myself included.
Nice. Sure. Yeah, love it. Fast Company called you out as one of the most innovative music companies, which, you know, they know what they're talking about.
Yep.
That's high praise. How do you think, like, do you think about innovation in a deliberate sense, or is it like more just, you know, is there a process that you think about, you know, how the business is changing, how, you know, what we need to do, or is it more of a casual thing that just kind of happens?
No, I think it's about thinking about, we have two stakeholders, right? We have our artist stakeholders and we have our listener stakeholders. And I think we try to think about the ways that we can help both of them or one or the other, right? And I think, you know, that leads to innovation, because you're trying to think about problems they have, opportunities they can take advantage of, and how do we build technology or, you know, things into our platform that help them take advantage of those opportunities, you know, or solve those problems, right? So I think that's where the innovation comes from. You know, a good example of this is like our share cards, which is a way to share kind of like milestones and achievements on Audiomack. And, you know, this solves two problems. It allows fans to kind of go out there and say, hey, I'm listening to this song, but like do so in a way that's kind of fun and gives them like a cool image asset instead of just showing like the album artwork, right? Like we give them that tool, we give them that asset from the app that they could go out and share. But then also it's great for artists because they want to be talking about their achievements. So they can also see, you know, once they hit 10,000 plays, they get a special asset that they can share. You know, and this is like, the innovation came from us seeing artists try to do this on their own and kind of, they would basically screenshot their stats on Audiomack, or they'd create, you know, use Paint or Photoshop to create their own little thing. And then we were like, well, why aren't we doing this for them? Like, this is something we could actually productize. And, you know, that was just like, how do we solve a problem for those artists? Or how do we make something easier or better for them? And it led to an innovation. And now, you know, Apple Music is doing something I think Spotify is doing something very similar.
Yeah, that's great. I love that. Well, let me do a quick lightning round before I let you get back to work.
Cool.
What's your favorite city to travel to?
I'd say San Diego, or actually it's Kauai. I go to Kauai every year.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, like so I go to Princeville in Kauai. Yeah, you've been there?
That's my favorite part of Hawaii. Yeah, we love it there. Who's your favorite DJ?
I was a big DJ Qbert fan. Like I like the scratching. I was always trying to like scratch like Qbert, but man, I wasn't anywhere close.
Nobody
takes a long time.
Few people. I mean, that guy, like the hours that he's put in behind the wheels, it's incredible.
Yeah.
No one really comes close. What's the last great book you read or listened to?
You know what? I actually really don't even read that many books. It's like I read magazines. I read business magazines. It's a kind of embarrassing actually. You know, but I read a lot of business books, which is super lame. You know, like
not necessarily.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the Irrefutable Laws of Leadership. That's like one of my favorite books.
It's a great book.
It is, yeah. But you know, I really should be reading more books. I like kind of like Raymond Chandler books where, like the old detective books. I just love the way that he writes and the way the characters sound, and kind of transports you back to, you know, nearly 100 years into the past. You know, it's like The Lady in the Lake is a favorite of mine, but I actually haven't read any novels recently.
I mean, I'm with you 100%. It is incredibly hard to find time. You know, there's so much out there that can just eat up our time. And, but I'm the same way. Like when I get into a book, whether fiction or nonfiction, like sometimes it's transformative. I just read this, Can't Stop, Won't Stop, Jeff Chang's History of Hip Hop. And it's like, you know, I've been into hip hop and, you know, somewhat of an expert for 30, 40 years. And he taught me so much just in that book that like blew my mind over and over again.
I got to check that out.
Yeah, it's really good. What movie do you think you've seen the most in your life?
I think I've seen like School of Rock the most in my life, and like it's not like
Okay.
I'm proud of that. Like it's just
Hey,
always
man.
on. It's always on TBS, and I'm like, you know what? Like I don't really pay attention to TV anyway. So like
For
the
sure.
fact that it's like, there's music in it. Actually, you know what? I've seen the Blues Brothers the most. I used to watch that all the
Oh,
time
wow.
as a kid.
That's a
So
good one.
like, I like music in
No,
my
it's
movies.
funny.
Yeah.
It's funny. There's those movies that they just suck you in, right? You might not really seek them out, but then they're on, and you just stop flipping and you stick with it.
Yeah.
And, it's always something stupid like that.
If
I
the
love
Blues
it.
Brothers is on, I'm watching it. I know that. If like School of Rock's
That's
on, I'll
amazing.
kind of like leave it on because I think it's fun how the kids learn to play
Uh-huh.
music and stuff. And not like
So
I'm a
funny.
big Jack Black fan, but I think he does a great job in that movie.
Yeah, for sure. Last one. If I worked for you, what's something I would hear you say over and over?
I think you'd hear me ask a lot of questions. Like I think no matter who at my organization is, how young they are, how inexperienced they are, I think that there's a lot that we can learn. So I think like what do you think of this is something I ask a lot of people. At least I hope that people would say that about me, because I do care about other people's opinions, and I don't always think I'm right. So if you want to hire somebody to do grunt work, like tech is not the right business for you. Like you should be hiring people that you consider smarter than you in certain areas, or at least with a different perspective than you, that you can use to create better products. So I'd hope that you'd hear a lot of questions from me that would ask your opinion or how you would do something.
Yeah, I love that. Well, thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate I love watching you build your thing, and what you're building is great. And, I can't wait to see where you guys take it next.
I appreciate that, Josh.
Yeah, for sure. I definitely, encourage everybody to download the app, especially when it comes to iOS. I'll be getting it, and check out Audiomack and discover some new music there.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. Be on the lookout for those international charts on iOS coming out soon. And then we got some other tricks in the works pretty soon. It's been great talking to you, Josh. I appreciate you having me on.
Yeah, for sure. Anytime.
That was Dave Macli on Rebel Radio. I hope you enjoyed it. I know I did. Make sure you check out Audiomack. There's lots of great new music streaming on there. Hip hop, Afrobeat, pretty much whatever you're looking for, you're going to find it on Audiomack. And most importantly, come back next week for more Rebel Radio. Peace.